Hey, e-commerce marketing podcast listener. Are you looking to increase traffic and sales to your website? You can do this by launching your own affiliate program. Just visit getosi.com and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com. Welcome back to the e-commerce marketing podcast, everyone. I am your host, Arlen Robinson, and today we have a very special guest, Liam Martin, who is the co-founder and CMO of TimeDoctor.com and Staff.com. After working with remote employees for over 10 years, Liam works on furthering outsourcing and is passionate about how to gain insights into the inner workings of how people work. Welcome to the podcast, Liam.
Thanks for having me, Arlen.
Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, before we get into the topic of the day, which is using remote teams to assist your e-commerce businesses with SEO development, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into what it is you're doing today?
Sure. I'm a human being on planet Earth, 35 years old. I've been co-founder and, basically we've been working at two different businesses that I co-founded with my business partner, Rob, TimeDoctor.com, Staff.com, and those tools are built to be able to manage remote teams better. And also, I just recently, about a week ago, got back from Bali in Indonesia, where I ran the largest conference on remote work ever, called Running Remote. We had 260 companies coming from 43 different countries all over the world, zipping into Bali to be able to learn how to build serious remote teams. And other than that, I just had 2 coffees and I'm ready to roll.
Okay, sounds good. So you're all fueled up. That's great. Mm-hmm. All right. So, the topic of today is something that is it's pretty dear to me here at OmniStar Affiliate Software. We've remote employees for a long time, and we understand the benefit to using remote employees. But with respects to e-commerce businesses, which are, the primary listeners out there, people that are either e-commerce business owners or people that are dealing with marketing for e-commerce businesses, the main thing that these businesses are always struggling with is marketing and SEO. And how do you accomplish it? There's just so much to do. And so, you are, of course, an expert in the field of remote team building. Why would you recommend building a remote team to improve your website SEO as opposed to, trying to do that type of stuff in-house and locally?
I would say outside of the economic advantages, which are quite obvious when you're able to hire people just anywhere on planet Earth, you're going to have higher quality talent for a lower cost. But secondarily, the employees are actually a lot happier. So there's plenty of data to back this up. There's quite a few studies that have been done, large scale and small scale. And on average, employees are about 25% happier than their on-premise counterparts. And they're also much more effective in their work. And they're also a lot faster to hire than their on-premise counterparts. So it allows you to really kind of expand and contract your labor force much more effectively than if everyone was in one place at the same time.
Yeah, that's definitely true. As far as these employees that you have access to, one of the things that I know rings true is you mentioned it's a lot easier and quicker to hire, as opposed to just a standard employee. Like, what would be the typical process as far as, I'm an e-commerce business. I know I need to improve my SEO and do a lot of things with my site with respect to Google and, the kind of the whole nine, but I've never really dealt with remote employees. Where would I begin?
Sure. So I can actually use a case study, which is aquamermaid.com. It's my girlfriend's business. Okay. And she sells mermaid tails. Okay. So she does 2 things. She has the largest chain of mermaid schools in the world. She has about 15 different locations. Wow. And basically she puts on, you have these tails, you put them on, and then she teaches you how to swim around in a pool. Okay. Like a mermaid. And I kind of didn't think that it was a very successful, I didn't think that there was going to be that much to that business when she first started, but it's been incredibly successful.
Okay.
And she used the exact methods that we use at TimeDoctorandStaff.com to be able to build out her SEO strategy. So primarily what she in essence did is we hired an SEO manager, and then we hired one linker to be able to work together on the problem. And basically we set up on Shopify, which, Shopify is not the best tool for SEO. And I got to tell you, I'm going to kind of shit talk Shopify a little bit, but it's fantastic.
No problem.
Like they're right across the street actually here in Ottawa, Canada, which is where I'm currently at.
Okay.
We have a small office here.
Okay.
So they've been mentors of us for years. So they have a fantastic platform, but there are some genuine drawbacks when it comes to SEO. And just basically organic search. Their blogging platform is not exactly the best, but they're absolutely fantastic when it comes to just e-commerce checkout flow through. They're absolutely amazing at that. And they're very easy to get up and running and to get a fantastic looking website in a very short amount of time.
Sure.
So we set up on Shopify. We got our link manager and we got a linker and basic.
Yeah, I lost.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost like 20 seconds. You dropped out totally.
All right. Where do you want me to start off?
Yeah, you mentioned at the point where you talked about you got a SEO manager or a link builder and a SEO link manager and then the actual linker. That's, I guess, where you left off.
Okay.
Where I lost you.
All right. I'll just start from that point.
Okay, great.
So we got ourselves a SEO manager and one link builder. And we actually only focused on one major keyword, which was the keyword mermaid tails. So that gets about 57,000 searches per month. And I believe she's around 8th for that particular keyword right now in the United States.
Okay.
And what we in essence did is we started reaching out to a whole bunch of people that had linked to stuff connected to mermaid tails in the past. That was about 4,000 to 5,000 people. And we would write very customized copy to all of those people saying, hey, we would love to be able to chat with you about Aquamermaid's mermaid school. And we would actually give them an offer, which was, would you like to have a free class at the Aquamermaid mermaid school? And that was generally, you probably get this too, Arlen, because I've taken a look at your site and you've got a pretty high DR at OSI affiliate. I get a couple dozen requests I would probably say almost per day, to be honest with you at this point, of people that are just like, the standard bullshit one is, hi, insert name. I really liked your content on insert website. Right. It was fantastic. I particularly liked your content on insert subtopic that I would like to be able to be linked to.
Right. I know those emails only too well.
This content. Yeah. If you like this content, then it would really be great if you could link to my piece of content. Would you like me to send it over to you? Right. And those work. Those actually still work, which is funny. So they work on and I'm going to use a terminology DR, which is domain rank. We use Ahrefs for all of our SEO. And DR is basically their version of domain authority. So I would say DR 40s and below, this works really well. And above DR 40s, it generally doesn't work out super well. Right. So for above that, you need to come up with either some really clear copy that very clearly demonstrates that you're not one of those cookie cutter people, or two, you need to actually give something really great before you actually get something. So a lot of the times what we'll do is we'll actually say, hey, OSI affiliate, we just wrote an article on the top 10 affiliate programs in the world. Top 10 affiliate program software packages in the world. And we included you as the first one on the list. And we would love it if we could talk about how we could collaborate, because there are a couple articles that you have on your website that we would love to be included in as well.
Right.
Right. But I started that email with saying, I just gave you a DR78 link.
Mm-hmm.
And for SEO, that's like, oh, sweet. Okay. You are absolutely, way above everybody that's just sending you the same cookie cutter crap every single day saying, hey, please link to me, but don't give me anything in return. I got to tell you just straight up, if you're a small website, I am not going to link to your website if you just send me a standard message saying, hey, link to my stuff.
Right.
If you're a small website, however, and you say something like, I would love for you, I really want to get the word out about Time Doctor. I love the product. We use the product. And here are some things that I'd love to be able to work with you on. And I'd love it if you could also work with me on some of these other things. And you need to actually do some of those things.
Right.
So like, I just wrote a blog post about you. Here's the blog post about, the top 5 time tracking tools for remote teams. And I made you the first one. That's something that really gets my attention. And I'll probably link back to you because you just basically helped us out.
Right.
And that's something that a lot of these guys don't understand. So back to Aqua Mermaid, we would just say, hey, we would like to give you a free mermaid class. The kind of cheat code that we had inside of that was we've only got about 5 or 6 cities in the United States. So we've got pretty much everywhere in Canada, but we've only got about 5 or 6 cities in the United States. And sometimes we would send out a message to someone in LA as an example. Like we got a link from BuzzFeed about 6 months ago. And we said, we said, hey, would you like a free class? And then they came back saying, hey, well, actually have a location in Los Angeles. And we actually knew that, but then it was just a way to open up the conversation. So primarily from that first email that you send out, you want to just get a response.
Right.
That's the most important thing that you could possibly do. Just get a response.
Right.
And then we said, hey, we know you don't have a location here, but do you have anybody in these cities? And they actually had someone in Chicago where we have a location. So we said, okay, why don't you bring your video crew out to Chicago? You can do one, and it was for the BuzzFeed's women's kind of YouTube channel. And they linked to they gave us a BuzzFeed backlink, and that was like a DR90.
Wow.
I believe. So it was a fantastic link for us. And just to kind of give you context for DR, it's almost on an exponential scale. So it's twice as hard to get a DR90 as it is a DR80. And then it's twice as hard to get a DR80 than a DR70. So it goes down in that kind of in those exponential jumps.
Right.
So dealing with a DR90 website, you really have to invest 7 to 8 email exchanges. You're going to have to invest in a phone call, but those actually produce much bigger returns for you as a business.
Right.
So if I could get 100 DR90 links versus 1,000 DR20s, I'd go for the 100 DR90s. Yeah. It's actually going to make a much more sense for you. And at the end of the day, basically the same rules that SEO have for it. Basically, it's the same rules as PR.
Right. Yeah.
So like you have to directly market to your customer.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think the key thing in both of those scenarios that you mentioned are, okay, for one, you're a fairly established business. You have a decent DR, and then you're approaching these other businesses on the outreach. You have a little leverage there. And then you said, of course, you're mentioning what you're going to be doing for them, mentioning that you can give them a link on your site. It's a DR. You've listed them in this post where you're going to list their company first. So immediately you're telling them what you're going to do for them. And then the second scenario is, if you're a smaller business, you're just kind of getting out there, you can't compete to some of these other larger guys, but you can do something for them. So you are immediately saying, I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to write this blog post. I'm going to feature you here. And I think that's the key thing there is because, these days, everybody is so busy. If you've got to catch them in that first sentence really about, rather than asking them for something, telling them immediately what you're doing for them. And I think if you can hook them there, like you said, that's why that first email exchange is the most important thing. Now, one of the things actually I want to go back to real quick is, when you're creating this team, you mentioned 2 distinct different types of workers, one being the SEO link manager, and then one just the actual link builder. how would somebody try to find, like, what type of background would a type of person need to be able to be, let's say, an SEO manager? So if I'm trying to hire a person to manage this outreach and to be the link manager, who would I look for?
Sure. I think you're probably looking for someone who just has general managerial skills and then also has a background in SEO.
Okay.
So I would not hire anybody that has no background in SEO. They would have to understand what DR is. Yeah. So maybe in a job interview, I would say, can you define what DR is? Mm-hmm. Can you define what UR is? Can you tell me how you would get a backlink from this website? Okay. What would be your approach? Mm-hmm. Those types of questions. And then the extra addition that I would have for link managers is the ability to be able to manage those people effectively. Mm-hmm. So understanding very clear KPIs and then basically getting those KPIs presented, because in essence, that's their team. Mm-hmm. that is, that's producing a particular result. So we use something called, we came up with this terminology, cumulative DR.
Okay.
So if you get a backlink from a DR20 website and then you get a backlink from a DR80 website, your cumulative DR is 100 points.
Okay.
So every month we actually have all of our linkers and then they submit their numbers and we find out what their cumulative DR is for each linker. And then we give them out a bonus.
Oh, okay. I see.
For the person that gets first place. And that's a really great way for us to be able to allow people to focus not only on really high-end links. So it's going to take you much longer to get a DR80 than it's going to do to get a DR20, but you will get rewarded for that because you're actually getting 80 points versus 20 points.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that actually, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that actually kind of brings me to my next question and what I was thinking about. Once you have these remote people on board, the SEO manager, the link builder, they're doing their thing, they're doing their outreach. What really should be the initial goals? I know what you guys said, you kind of do a cumulative DR, which is pretty cool because I had never really heard about doing it like that. Would it make sense to set like specific goals for these guys as far as, in a month's time period, you need to get this many links, or looking at it from a business standpoint, what's like a realistic goal if you're just bringing on these two people?
Yeah.
What would you think?
It's very difficult to be able to define a goal that's fair for a link builder.
Okay.
Because the link manager is also going to have to look at on-page and off-page SEO. Mm-hmm. So on-page SEO is just the way that you optimize your content. Mm-hmm. So which keywords are you choosing? Do you think you can actually rank for those keywords? Are you optimizing your content for that particular keyword? That's all on page. Mm-hmm. And then link building is basically the off page component. So a linker can really only control off page.
Right.
So if you have a really crappy on page SEO and your guys are doing a ton of link building, but it's not getting any results, well, that's not their fault.
Right.
That's your on-page person's fault. So what you need to do is, we've focused on cumulative DR as the best measurement because they really can't control whether something gets ranked. They can only control whether something gets linked to.
Gotcha.
And they're not in control of whether or not the on-page person has done a horrible job, whether the person that wrote the blog post, it's a horrible piece of content that people just don't want to read. Like it's very, and those all of those things help, obviously. So if your content is really good, then people will link to it more.
Right.
So actually, it's also kind of on the other side, it's not necessarily the perfect measure, because sometimes your content team that are writing the content are producing really good stuff, and your linking team is really not doing a great job, but because your content is so good, it gets linked to more often.
Right.
So it's not the perfect measure, but that's the one that we use.
Yeah, that really makes sense, because like you said, you really have to separate the two. Your linkers could be getting all of these links, but you don't see your rankings go up because, like you said, your on-page content and your on-page SEO just could suck. And it's not it's not the linkers' fault. So you can't hold them accountable for, not seeing an improvement in your ranking. So yeah, that really totally makes sense. So you really have to kind of split up the two. Now, we
also have a very specific measurement for the content team as well. So basically time on site is the biggest. So we used to say minimum 3,000 words blog post. And now we've actually upped it to 4,000.
Really? Okay. Wow. Then these are for all of the internal blog posts that you guys do across your site?
Yeah. So if we're writing a blog post, it's got to be 4,000 words.
Okay.
And then on that, we measure time on site.
Okay.
So each basically content writer gets the measure of how much time people spend on those pieces of content, and we give them a cumulative score. So we give them a score, basically all of your content that you've ever written, what's the average time on site, and then we also have another measure, which is what is the last 3 pieces of content average time on site.
Okay.
So it shows whether or not people are improving, and you always want that number to go up, because the longer that someone spends on your website, Google measures that. You have Gmail, if you use Google Apps or you use Gmail, they're measuring, or Chrome, they're measuring how long you spend on every single page that you've interacted with on Chrome. I know that kind of sounds creepy, but that's what they do.
Right. Gotcha.
So they are measuring that, and then they're coming back saying it's just two major measures: time on site and then bounce rate.
Okay.
So if someone comes to your website, someone Googles something like affiliate software, they click on osiaffiliate.com, and they're on there for 3 seconds, and then they jump back to the search, the SERPs, search engine results page.
Right.
That's really bad for your website, because that searcher didn't find what they were looking for. So then Google basically recognizes that and says, oh, well, I'm going to actually rank you lower. That's a negative cross against you. So we try to make sure that that's entirely in control of the content team. A little bit is connected to the copy that people will that you'll write in your meta title and your meta description. Because people, sometimes will just have a really good piece of content that's really clicky from a meta title and meta description perspective that everyone will just click on.
Right.
But generally, your content team is really going to control time on site, and that's what we measure.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned that you guys have just kind of upped your posts word count to 4,000 words. Is the reason for that really just to get that's to improve time on site? You want more content, so people are going to be on there digesting that material. That's the main goal for that? Yeah, and generally, the longer your blog posts, the longer someone spends on your blog. Right. And that doesn't necessarily correlate to whether or not the post is better or not. Gotcha. But that's how Google defines it. So just do exactly what Google tells you. Okay. That's their definition of good. Is there is no definition, right? Like it's very, particularly in dealing in our business at Time Doctor, we're always trying to focus on productivity. What makes employees more productive? And you could bring in 10 companies and they would each have 10 different definitions of what productive means. Right. To them. So we just kind of say, yes, maybe 4,000 words isn't necessarily like, I would love actually a 1,000 word post that's super clear and to the point and effective. However, Google doesn't reward you for that type of content. They reward you for very long-winded posts, which is somewhat unfortunate. We actually try to do both, which is information rich and very long. Yeah, that makes sense, because you do have to have some posts, like you said, that you just got to get some quick points out there that are easy to digest. But like you said, we all have to unfortunately bow down to Google and do whatever we can to make sure our sites rank well. So it's you're gonna have to do both. Now, I know one thing that some business owners may be thinking, and part of this could be covered by the SEO manager, but e-commerce business owners are definitely always busy. They're doing a million things. They're managing employees, they're managing their products, and the whole nine. So as far as on a day-to-day basis, how do you effectively manage these remote teams without being consumed in the day-to-day management, without having to constantly look over them and daily looking over their shoulders? Is there any words of wisdom you can relay based on that? Sure. So we use kind of 3 major measures. We have the manager, who is directly responsible for the KPIs. So only the manager is a direct report to me. All of the linkers and researchers and content team are not. So the link manager basically provides me a direct report saying, here are the metrics that the team is, providing to me.
And that's pretty much as far as it goes with me. I will kind of check in. We just did our big team retreat where we flew everyone in for our company retreat a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And I will interact with people at that point, but outside of that, it's really not, they don't work for me. They work for him. And then he works for me.
Okay.
They'll have over what they do with their own team.
Yeah, Liam, you actually broke up.
losing me?
I lost you for like 10 seconds where you talked about the person that works for you, and then you dropped out.
Okay, let me just go back to the person that works for me. So the person that basically works for me, that directly reports to me, is the person that I interact with. And then the employees that person manages, they don't work for me. They work for him.
Okay, gotcha.
So that allows me to just very clearly manage just that person's results. And that person that reports to me, the SEO manager, is responsible for all of those numbers. Okay. So I give that person a target, and if they can't hit that target, then I say, well, why haven't you hit that target? Is it an issue of resources? Do you what's going on with your team? How can we optimize that team and make them as successful as humanly possible? And when you give someone that type of freedom, they really generally step up to the plate, and they'll surprise you about 95% of the time, which is fantastic.
Okay.
If you're really micromanaging them, then they don't feel like they have ownership. From that perspective, I think for me, it's just going from the micromanagement to the empowerment kind of side of the table. It's something that has just been huge.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. I understand totally. And I think the key here, as far as making sure you don't have to constantly watch over people, is making sure you've hired the best SEO manager, the link manager, somebody that really is going to do a good job overseeing the linkers and is going to be effective in communicating the results back to you, and is going to be responsive with that. And I think those are going to be the really the main things.
Yep.
Now for a business that's let's say looking to do this, looking to use this remote team to improve the SEO, from day one, what's I guess you could say a quick win that any e-commerce business could obtain by forming a remote team? What's I guess you could say a quantifiable quick win that they could easily see?
Sure. If they're already an existing website, so they've already got some links going to them, I would probably say doing an on-page site audit is one of the fastest ways to get those quick wins in right away. Okay. So I would go through all of your pieces of content, figure out which ones are getting traffic. So like as an example, I'll go back to the Aqua Mermaid example. She's ranked 8th for the keyword mermaid tails, which is 57,000 searches per month. And we went through and analyzed how much content she had on that web page, what type of content she had on that web page, whether it was engaging or not. And then we changed the on-page components connected to that, and we immediately saw a boost in rankings without doing any more link building. So a lot of the time what you can do is just actually optimize your content. Okay. So you and just generally optimizing your content means putting your target keyword in your title tag. Okay. Putting it in the H1 tag at the top of your website, and probably putting that target keyword within the first sentence or two of your main piece of content. That's pretty much all you need to do to be able to optimize it, but a lot of people don't kind of recognize that. If you wanted to go a little bit deeper, there is something called latent semantic indexing keywords. Okay. And if you just type in LSI keyword generator, you'll probably be able to get something like that pops up. And those are keywords that are statistically connected to that main keyword that you want to discuss. Okay. So maybe an LSI keyword of mermaid tails would be mermaid school, or would be silicone mermaid tails, or would be monofin as an example. So you could use those keywords also in that main piece of content to be able to rank for it. And then basically you just make those changes, you wait 4 weeks, and then you see what the result is. Generally, it's always good. So adding a little bit more content is quite powerful. Another thing that you might want to try, which is a little bit more extreme, but one that I've been convinced of just recently, is actually killing pieces of content that don't rank.
Okay.
So if you've written an article for, I'm just going to choose something interesting here, mermaid classes, and you don't rank for mermaid classes. So you wrote a really great piece of content for mermaid classes, and it didn't seem to actually hit the mark. You can delete that piece of content and you can redirect it towards a page on your website, permanent redirect, a 301 permanent redirect, to something that does actually get traffic. And the piece that you'll redirect to usually ends up actually doing much better. So that's something that you can do, because if you've got like 100 pieces of content and none of them rank, and then you whittled it down to 10 pieces of content that all ranked top 3, you're actually probably going to get more traffic overall.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's
a little bit counterintuitive, but
that is. That's just something I never thought about. And so kind of the bottom line there is you really, even before even thinking about reaching out there, you really need to look at what you have. If you've got a decent blog, you've written some fairly good content, you really should start at that audit and then see what you can improve. And like you said, there's certain things that you probably can kill off that are really not doing you any justice. So that's some great advice. Yeah, you've provided a whole wealth of information. Lehman, we appreciate you being on the podcast. One of the things that I've recently done, and I'd like to always find a little bit more about our guests, is just a quick fun question. What's one thing that our audience would be surprised to know about you?
I used to be a competitive ice dancer.
Really? Wow.
Competed internationally in ice dance for Canada.
Okay. I would not have guessed that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how long were you doing? Is that something you still do, or how long were you in?
No.
Okay.
I haven't put on a pair of skates. I mean, maybe I put on a pair of skates once a year.
Okay.
But I haven't done it competitively for 15 years.
Okay.
I broke my kneecap at national championships, the Canadian national championships, and that was kind of the end of my career, unfortunately.
Oh man, that's unfortunate. That sounds painful. Yeah, I've had knee issues.
It very much was.
Oh wow. Oh yeah, that's a sport that takes an incredible amount of agility and strength, core strength especially. I could imagine you had quite a bit of a core workout routine when you were doing that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great, Liam. Well, yeah, like I said, thanks again for being here on the e-commerce marketing podcast. If any of our guests or listeners, if any of our listeners out there want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do it?
You know what? I feel like Instagram. Instagram is just like, I've recently been very interested in Instagram. For anyone that's kind of looking at e-commerce, and I might be a little bit late to the party, but the data shows that Instagram is just absolutely killing it. It's a bigger place than Facebook now. And I'm very interested in it. So just find me on Instagram and message me there.
Okay.
Because I'd really love to be, and I'm going to engage with everybody that wants to engage with me on Instagram. I've got filters everywhere else except for there, because I'm so interested in that platform and trying to learn it.
Okay, great. That's awesome. Okay, Liam, our audience will definitely be sure to reach out to you on Instagram. And thanks again for being with us here on the e-commerce marketing podcast. Thank you for listening to the e-commerce marketing podcast. You need to get more feedback and reviews from your customers and improve your customer retention? We have made it easy to do all of this with our advanced customer feedback software. Just visit getosi.com/feedback and sign up for a free trial today. That's getosi.com/feedback.